Welcome to And Her Name Is, the podcast that explores leadership from the fringes. I'm your coach, Jenny Moutou. In today's episode, I talk about the 5 talents. It's a story from the Bible that has so much relevance in today's world and is particularly significant for me. After recording this episode, my very first episode, I joined a group of women I was on retreat with. And while we were sitting there, one of the women shared a story about a father she knew. This particular father had worked very hard, and together with his wife, they had built a multi-million-dollar business. He had done what he always wanted to do, and had, in his mind, led by example to his sons. Only recently, his eldest son turned to him and he said to his father, "Dad, I'm depressed." And his father was shocked. Like he had led the way. He had done all he could do to provide for his sons and to give them the best life possible. This was not what he expected. In his mind, the world was their oyster. They could do whatever they wanted and they could have whatever they wanted. But in conversation with the father, the son started to share how he could not possibly do what his father had done. How could he create a multi-million-dollar business? In his mind, he couldn't. When I heard this, I felt even more compelled to publish this episode. It's raw, it's real, and it's relevant. So as you listen, I invite you to consider, who are you in this story? Maybe you'll resonate with what I share and from the point of view that I share it. But maybe you've already resonated with this story and you're the son or the father. Wherever you find yourself, know that there is a path forward and an opportunity for your gifts to be explored and expressed. So let's get to it. So I'm here in Noosa with some beautiful, beautiful women. And what's really present for me is how much I've been playing small in the last few months. I've been so distracted by all the different conversations people have around marketing that it has undermined my confidence and undermined me actually taking action that matters. And part of that action has been not showing up online and really hiding within myself. And I realized while I've been on this retreat that a lot of that has got to do with my own feelings of inadequacy and feeling like people already know the stuff that I have to teach. It's kind of funny in a way because for the whole of August I've been going around in these BX networking meetings and sharing an Excite presentation, which is basically a 10-minute presentation. And the topic has been the tale of the 5 talents, or the parable of the 5 talents reloaded. I don't know if you're familiar with that story, but essentially it's based on a story in the Bible where the master is leaving the palace and gives his 3 servants talents. Back in those days in the Bible, talents was actually the equivalent of money. So to the first servant he gives 5 talents, to the second 2, and to the last one 1 talent. And he leaves the castle entrusting his servants with these talents. Well, the first servant, getting 5 talents, goes off and invests the money. The second servant does the same. But the third servant actually stops and thinks and says, well, my master, he turns wealth. He seems to make wealth happen out of thin air. He's able to reap where he hasn't sown, and he's able to gather. And I am no comparison to my master. What do I know? So he doesn't invest the talents that he has. He doesn't invest the 1 talent he has. Instead, he buries the talent. And when the master returns, he gathers his servants and he wants to know, what have you done with the talents that I've given you? And so the first servant presents, master, I've doubled the money. I've doubled the talents. And he gives the master back 10 talents from the 5 that he had previously been given. And the master is absolutely delighted. To the second servant, he says, well, what have you done? Well, I also invested the money, and now I have 4 talents. And the master again is absolutely delighted. And then he turns to the final servant and he says, well, what have you done? And the servant replied, master, I am no comparison to you. I can't do what you have done. And so I buried the talent, and here is your 1 single talent back. Now, if we just stop and pause there, and I have to ask you, I've been digesting this story for a number of years now, thinking not only in terms of the talent representing money, but the talent actually representing the gifts that we're born with and what we do with them, and how I feel we're meant to use them to serve humanity. And there are so many people, myself included, who have these talents, who have buried them, and we're not using it and we're not sharing it for all sorts of reasons. Sometimes comparison, sometimes self-worth, sometimes not feeling good enough or adequate enough, or that what we have to share would actually be of value to another human being. And I think that's where we underestimate our value. I know that that's definitely there for me. So going back to the story, when the master is presented with this 1 talent that he gave the servant, he's absolutely furious. And he's furious because he says to the servant, look, even if you had invested that 1 talent in the bank, you would have got interest back on your money. It would have made something. It might not have been much, but it would have been something. And it's such a valuable lesson. As I said, I've been so distracted in the last few months. And ironically, in the month of August, I spent a lot of time telling that story and retelling it. And every time I told it, it was different. But it speaks volumes to me in terms of my own capability and what I'm here to do. So as I said, I'm in Noosa. I'm at a retreat full of absolutely magnificent women. And we have been going through a process in the last few days. And part of that process has been about releasing pain or trauma or hurts that we carry inside of us. And being surrounded by these women and feeling my own pain and my own need to release and let go has been such an affirmation that the world really does need healing. And that whatever I have to offer, even if it is just 1 talent, is worth putting forward. Because even if that 1 talent returns just the smallest amount, it returns something. And I've been in this game long enough to know that you never actually know what people need to hear, and you never actually know what's going to turn somebody's life around or take them from the brink of suicide and actually bring them back into their life. And I think I've been forgetting that a lot, and really just getting self-absorbed in my own stuff. And I actually feel like I need to apologize for that level of selfishness, because that is actually selfish. So I'm recording this as my very first podcast episode to ask you who happen to be listening to hold me to account for showing up and forgiving and not knowing what the result of that giving will be, but that it's vitally important that I give. If I wanted to just round off that story in the Bible, one of the things that
one of the lessons and the point of that parable is that to those who have, more will be given, and those who have little, even what little they have, will be taken away. And I think it's so important to understand that and to feel it. I know that if I'm sitting on the sidelines and not giving what I have, that there are other people out there that are doing the same. And so I'm not here to be an example to anybody else, but I'm here to hold myself accountable and responsible for sharing what I have. And just, one final verse just to finish this off is that if we don't bring forth the gifts that are within us, they will destroy us. But if we bring them forth, they not only potentially save the life of another, but they actually save our life too. So there's a lot in this message that I would like to leave you with. And I guess the first question is, what talents do you have that you're not expressing? What talents and gifts and service do you have to offer that you're burying instead of investing in? And forget about the money, forget about the return, but it's just the act of giving and the act of putting faith and trust in your investment that something will happen, even if it's just the equivalent of interest in the bank, that something will happen. And that's where I'm sitting today, is that I believe even just with a little bit of investment, something will happen. And I have the ability to help somebody or bring some light into somebody else's life.
Thanks for listening to And Her Name Is. If you liked what you heard and you want to know more, go to jennymoutou.com/resources. And remember to hit subscribe so you get notified for all the new episodes.